We're going to start on 3, 2, 1, go. Alright, so, Jumping Flash 2. The goal of this game is to go and grab 4 Moo-Moos and head to the exit platform in every level here. So, a lot of the routing in this game is pretty straightforward in terms of, hey, you go grab them in the most optimal fashion possible. But there's also some item routing that I'll be doing as I go along, and this is mainly to help with the boss fights that happen at the end of every world here. So, one thing you might notice me doing here is jumping very lightly and then falling, and that's actually a lot faster than jumping to the apex of your jump and then lightly and gracefully falling down. So with that, we have the first 4 Moo-Moos here. On top of that, we've got some extra items here for the boss fight coming up, and that's 1-1 right there for you. Oh, nice. We already have some TonyOgbot floating out there. By all means, please blanket that chat with those. Alright, so stage 2 here. This one is definitely more ridiculous in terms of how I make my way around the stage. Like, this whale here happens to have a Moo-Moo, and then this floating island off into the distance has another one. So I'm making some pretty death-defying jumps here to get to these Moo-Moos. And then there's one floating out on this turtle out here. And now I'm going to have to make my way all the way across the screen again here, because at the corner here, there's actually going to be another Moo-Moo just kind of hanging out. And the reason I grabbed this freeze time here is to actually make it so I can bounce off of that bird with the parachute there, and that allows me to jump over here comfortably. And so with that, now that we have all 4, we just head straight to the exit and continue on. It's a shame. I just recently got a PS2 to replace my old one that went out, but didn't have time to get it ready for this run, so playing on an old PlayStation 1, so it's going to take a little bit here. And what you're going to see me do here is just kind of harass the boss the best way I can. He tends to shoot across there depending on positioning there, so I'm just kind of waiting for the opportune moment now to throw the rest of my items at him. And since I use the items in a rather smart way instead of just kind of throwing everything at him at once, that allowed me to destroy him a lot quicker than you normally would just shooting him down. And I do feel the need to say that the strategy of me looking downwards as much as possible is not forced by the game at all. It just so happens that, like GoldenEye, this game does reduce a lot of lag by looking at your feet as much as you can. Just kidding. If you've actually played this game, it's actually a built-in mechanic, but you know. This game is basically the PlayStation 1's answer to GoldenEye. So I'm going to grab this item right here because the amount of damage that it puts out on anything that you hit it with is humongous. So now that I've got that, I'm going to just go about my normal day of grabbing all of the Moo-Moos so they can spell out exit for me, because clearly I can't spell it myself. And there is one that I just passed up, but I'm going to grab this one here, because now I actually do need to go back that direction anyway. So with that, that's the last Moo-Moo, jump off the drum, and exit. So coming up is something that's a little more of a Jumping Flash 2 thing over Jumping Flash, and we have an indoors stage coming up here. So with that being said, I mean, there's really nothing too crazy fast about these besides, hey, I'm running as quickly as I can here. So we'll just enjoy this beautiful music and jump on through everything. I feel like now is also a good time to provide some shout-outs to all the boys that have run this game in the past. We have... oh gosh. A good old boy named Andre, he ran the game. Maze. Who else? Arata. Like, guys you probably haven't really heard of. And this game happened to be the last game they touched, so we're probably looking at the elephant graveyard of speedrun games right here. So, as somber of a note that is, we're actually almost done with the level, so I'll just be able to continue on and actually have a more uplifting time with this game. So now we're hitting the second world's boss fight, and this one's pretty interesting. I mean, I feel like that's a very common thing you're going to hear me say, just because this game itself is rather interesting, but it's definitely well meant every time it is said. So what you're going to see me do here is a lot of jumping on top of the boss as well, because that also deals damage. So just to increase my fall speed, I am lightly jumping after I bounce off the top of him. I also got inside him there too. That was quite beautiful, actually. Ooh. Alright, so we dealt with him, got in him a couple times, no big deal. But yeah, as you probably saw with the item that I used, the damage output on it is unreal, and in turn, every world I go through, I tend to grab at least one for the boss fight coming up. So coming up is World 3, and this one is a lot more open in terms of design as well as how you can go about completing each level. So this time stop here is completely optional. I like it just mainly for the fact that it controls everything around me, so I don't have to really worry about anything, even though there aren't any huge dangers in that area. So with that, I need to go out of my way and grab the wonderful item here that just melts everything in its path. And then we'll grab the second Moo here. So, one of the cool things about this game is that you can pretty much jump on anything, and there's definitely that design in mind, but at the same time, like, some of these jumps are probably not what they would have expected to be done to actually complete the level. So right here, for example, oh, I think I was a little low there. Let's try that on this one right here. Yeah, there we are. So there's a big old platforming section you can do to get to that point there, but if you jump just right, you'll be able to bypass all of that and then make your way to the last Moo here. So now that we have that, let's hit that exit. Someone actually took the time to post the leaderboards for this game. Thank you very much, because as you can see, the community is very small. There's always a couple of those PlayStation games that get attention in some ways, but at the same time, not the attention you would probably expect. Like, I mean, there's always the popular ones, but there's just the really odd ones that tend to do well too, and this actually tends to be one of those. Like, people see it, and I mean, the core concept of the game is so basic that it's pretty interesting just to kind of see what you can do and push with it, and in turn, I mean, it's just one of those fringe, like, PlayStation games that kind of has a cult following between speedrunners, and I mean, I couldn't even tell you if anyone else really knows about these games besides, like, you know, the ones that actually dig for these kinds of games. So this invulnerability here is mainly just to kind of streamline this portion here, because it can actually slow you down a bit if you just bonk a couple things. So instead of worrying about that, I took the invincibility just to continue onwards there. So now that I've got that, if I position myself just right as I land on this, I'll actually miss that little enemy sitting in the middle there. So now, the third boss is interesting, to say the least. So I'm gonna just kind of let you guys check out this beautiful piranha plant here. And I'm gonna just deal with him accordingly. So I am just gonna pepper him down normally like this for now, because when he hits half health, he actually starts to regenerate his health, which is bad. No matter what you do it with, and no matter how long it takes you, it happens every time. So you're gonna see now, coming up here, yep, he's gonna make it rain and heal himself back up to full health. But now that he's done that, he is very vulnerable, and these items completely trivialize this fight. So we're gonna throw the laser at him, and then once that ends here, oh, you know what? Let's just sit on that. That's a good item to keep too. So yeah, piranha plant down. Oh, nice. That was completely planned. It was RNG manipulation. So I could keep myself from having any random bad luck moments throughout the rest of this run, because it's completely random in most places. So World 4 is pretty cool. It's a really industrial-inspired world, and in turn, there's some really interesting things you can jump on that make it a little faster. Like, for example, this little dinghy out here. Oh, nice. Let's miss that. It is easier, or quicker, to just try again instead of, you know, actually let the death animation play. So I just decided to go forth with that instead, because, I mean, being bad in a marathon is always pretty great. So I'm going to grab those little rockets while I'm at it. And sadly I can't exit, but the exit does provide just enough height to hit this Moo right here. And then from there I kind of branch away again. So I'm going to do a time stop here, and what this does is manipulates some of the platforms coming up for me, just so it is a little more consistent and easier to make my way through all of this. And now that I've gotten that, we've got one Moo left, which happens to be pretty close to where I'm shooting myself here. So I'm going to grab this item as well. The balls here are pretty great. They're no lasers, but they're definitely pretty high damage. Alright, so now I got this last Moo here. We'll make our way to the exit here. So, we're not out of the park yet in terms of indoor levels, so we're gonna just kind of trudge our way through the hallways of this, looks like an underwater, like, laboratory. Like, for this game, there's generally no rhyme or reason to anything in it, so coming up with your own, like, headcanon and story is always well advised, because, I mean, it's just one of those really odd Japanese games where things do have some sense, but more often than not, there's very little sense to be made out of the game. Oh wow, these guys are wanting a little kiss or something there. Not cool. Yeah, that's been the most aggressive those radio TVs have been to me, like, ever. Hello? There we are. So I want to grab some more balls over here, because balls are great. Then I'm going to continue on here and try to mop up everything else here. There is one more item I grabbed towards the end of this level. It's of course the good old lasers that we've been abusing in boss fights. But with the upcoming boss fight, if I do actually utilize the balls well enough, I can actually carry on that laser to the later levels. So it's nice to kind of grab those, or optimize your item usage if you can. But at the same time, there's just the only real randomness in this game is the overall effectiveness of some of these items, because like each individual projectile it shoots out is like a factor, and sometimes those behave very weirdly. Alright, so this guy's gonna be coming up later. You'll see him and you'll recognize him and be like, oh, nice. Tony warned me about this guy, so more to come with him. But for now, we're gonna deal with a different boss, and this boss breaks my heart every time. Because what this boss is right here is a mechanical spider. Spiders are so cute, man. It's not cool. I would never hurt a spider. Hug one maybe, but that's like the most. So what I'm doing here is just peppering the enemy with my shots for now. I can be a little more in its face if I want to, but I'd rather be as safe as I possibly can. So I'm gonna let him try to stop here, because that'll allow me to... Oh, nice. Okay, so that's a lot of damage. I could probably finish him off right here. Okay. He's kind of being a buster, though. This isn't good. Alright. Yeah, let's save that laser, though, because that's really important, if I can hold on to it. So, World 5 is pretty interesting. Like I said, that's going to be a very common theme in what I have to say about this game. But this one right here is a much more, like, circus-inspired one. And you're going to get a lot from mainly the musical style of this level more so, and all the, like, rainbow, like, tracks and such. But, the rest of the world will really sell you on that concept, and you'll definitely see why in a second here. Alright, so that's a really tight jump that I normally don't go for, but since, you know, the whole running a game for a bit and getting a little more confidence in it kind of allows you to have some fun with it. So, on that little track there was another laser that I was shooting for, but you know, I don't necessarily need. The amount of time it saves is actually rather trivial, but it's always nice to have a spare in case things don't go well, or as right as you would hope. Oh, oh, that was close. Okay. So we hit the exit. That's good. So, World 5-2 is probably my favorite in terms of the route for it, as well as the song, so I'll explain as much as I feel I need to, but I'll kind of stay quiet here just so we can enjoy this banging tune here. So this Moo coming up, it can be a little difficult to get because the placement of it does kind of depend on where the little swing there likes to be. Alright. Yeah, that song's super comfy, pretty sweet, so definitely want to enjoy it while I can here. And the boss for this stage is pretty interesting as well. Basically, there's two clowns that are on top of, like, beach balls is what I'll call them, because that's definitely what they look like. And the way that they go out is the exact same every time. They share life bars, but one of them dies first. So what I'm going to do is just kind of harass one until they take enough damage to die. And as you see, the red one went out, so now I just need to deal with the black clown here, which will go down quicker rather than later here. Yeah, normally you would see some really tight jumping on top of it as well by light tapping every time you bounce off of it, but it's not the easiest to do consistently on bosses that move like that all the time, so for the sake of marathon safety I decided to just kind of go with the more safer option, which in turn only adds maybe just a couple seconds on top of the time there. And so World 6 is the final world coming up here, and this one breaks the mold of 2 rescue stages and 1 boss stage. It's actually going to be 1 Moo rescue stage and 2 bosses. So, with that being said, let's go into this big mess of a world that is 6-1. So, when I was alluding to the game not having a lot of rhyme and reason to begin with, I feel like 6-1 is the embodiment of that. There's a lot of everything around, and you just kind of have to slog your way through some crazy platforming to get to where you need to go. And this one is luckily routed well enough to where you can definitely get through it comfortably. And there's some riskier stuff you can do, and in terms of if it's faster or slower, I mean, no one's really taken the time to time it out, really. It's more of a... like, everyone that's run this game in the past has pretty much run whatever route they see. And even then, like, there isn't a lot of good documentation for this game, because honestly, as soon as someone has picked it up, they've stopped running the game as well as just speedrunning in general very shortly after, so I'm the only person that's dodged the whole elephant graveyard of Jumping Flash 2. So now we're gonna fight the first boss of World 6 here. And before we do so, I just want to note the guy at the bottom of that screen there when he's holding his arms out under all those worlds there. He's gonna be showing up pretty soon. So this guy, I just need to harass a bunch and hope that he gives me some decent patterns. Like, his little sword wave in here is a pretty good pattern. This one's not that great though, because staying on top of him is a nightmare, and he tends to randomize which way he bounces. Okay, so he's gonna bomb us now with some fire bombs, so I'll just kind of harass him from farther away. Yeah, these are some pretty rough patterns. This is unfortunate. He'll be out pretty soon though, which is all that matters. There we go. I did see a question about controls for this game too, and I have to be completely honest, not the greatest. It's an acquired taste. That's the most friendly way I can put it. So here's the last boss fight, and time will be on, well, coming up. I'll give you a good warning on this. So that's the best pattern to get out of him. Him shooting his arm, or shooting like a sound wave at you, like this. Because the only other pattern he'll give you is this one right here, which requires a little bit of movement and maneuvering to get away from. So he likes to shoot you with love and try to fist you a little bit and scream at you, but you just kind of deal with him. And there's 3 phases to this fight, and this phase will be over shortly. His health is looking low enough to where he's going to change phases soon. Alright, so now he's a tank form, and he's going to scream at me a lot and shoot these little diamond things at me, which is a bit of a pain. What's fun is that a lot of the strategies for the boss fights early on in this game's routed life was to just bounce on them repeatedly and shoot them. I've found that not only is it safer to not do that, it is actually a little faster too to not do so, because you're not worried about trying to stay on top of the enemy there. Alright, so yep, that's the boss, and the time is going to be... time, right here. So yeah, that was a pretty decent run of Jumping Flash 2. Definitely pretty happy with it. Happy to share such a silly and bizarre PlayStation game with everyone. Yeah, this won't be my last run for this marathon here. You'll see me tomorrow, well, tomorrow for me, probably later in the day for all you Euros out there, racing Jangbang in Mighty Switch Force, so that'll be a good time. But thank you very much for having me, ESA friends, and I can't wait to show off my absolute favorite game tomorrow. So, there's really no need for the ending cutscene. It's as bizarre as the rest of the game is, so thank you very much, and you guys have been wonderful. Have a great night, or, well, day for you Europeans out there.